Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our mission today is really laser-focused on one of the biggest questions of our time.
It's one that everyone is grappling with.
Exactly. What happens to human competitive advantage when AI stops just automating manual tasks and starts, well, automating thinking itself? So today we're doing a deep dive into how the human skill set has to change. What do we need to learn? And maybe even more importantly, what do we need to unlearn to really thrive in this new world?
That distinction right there, learning versus unlearning, I think that's absolutely central to survival.
How so?
Well, for centuries, work has been about mastering these specialized cognitive skills. You know, if you were a lawyer, an accountant, a programmer, your value was tied to how well you could process really complex information.
That was the edge.
That was the entire edge. But AI is it's dismantling that advantage. It's making so many of those traditional mental skills a commodity. If we try to compete with the machine on its terms, on speed, on raw processing power, we're just fighting a battle that we can't win.
You're just set up to lose.
Right. We need a really foundational, transformative leap in how we even approach our professional lives.
And that actually sets up our guiding analogy for today perfectly. We have to start with the classic American folk hero, John Henry, the steel-driving man.
A fantastic story.
So the legend, for anyone who doesn't know, is about John Henry, a human laborer going head-to-head with the big technology of his day, a steam-powered drilling machine.
He saw it as a direct threat.
A completely existential threat to his job, his identity, his skill. He just flat-out refused to be replaced.
And the contest that followed was just brutal. The machine, it starts strong, drills a 9-foot hole, surges way ahead. It has this limitless mechanical endurance.
But John Henry, he's fueled by, human spirit, sheer determination. He just keeps going.
Pure force. And then in a stroke of luck for the human side, the machine actually breaks down, some mechanical failure. This gives John Henry the opening he needs to catch up, overtake it, and he wins. He digs a 14-foot hole.
He triumphed. He proved that human strength, human resilience, that it could beat innovation, at least, in that one single instance. But here's the bittersweet part, the lesson that gives the whole story its real weight. Exhausted, right after winning, John Henry collapses. His heart gives out.
He won the battle.
He won the battle, but he paid the ultimate price. It's this powerful, tragic story of defiance, of that innate human resistance to being made obsolete.
But the real question, the more profound question the story asks, isn't about that first battle. It's about the second one.
The one that never happened.
Exactly. What if John Henry had survived and had to face Drilling Machine 2.0?
Right.
The inventor would have gone back, fixed the problems, and returned a few months later with a machine that was stronger, faster, more reliable. John Henry might challenge it again, maybe even win again.
But that margin to victory would get smaller and smaller every time.
It's an unwinnable cycle. Because the machine learns from failure, it improves exponentially, and eventually a day comes when even John Henry's legendary strength just isn't enough.
And that is the choice. That is exactly the choice facing every professional today.
It is.
We have to shift that analogy from physical strengths, from John Henry's era, to cognitive skills, which define ours. AI is moving so fast that if we keep fighting that same old battle, if we try to out-analyze or out-process the machine, we're just heading for that same burnout, the same obsolescence.
We have to adapt, or we face this unwinnable war of attrition against exponential tech. It's about moving beyond trying to have a purely cognitive edge.
So what's the framework for success then?
We call it the hybrid skill set. It's about integrating AI literacy, knowing how to use the tools effectively, with the uniquely human skills that AI just can't replicate. That's where our real durable value is going to be.
And we're structuring this deep dive around 3 pillars for that transformation.
That's right. First, cognitive transformation, which is about how we think differently. Second, behavioral transformation, how we act differently. And third, emotional transformation, which is all about how we anchor that authentic human connection.
That sets the stage perfectly. So let's start by grounding this in a bit of history. Let's talk about the evolution of human competitive edge, from the physical to where we are now.
To really get what's happening now, you need that historical perspective. And we have to go way, way back.
How far back?
Think 130,000 to 80,000 years ago, the emergence of modern Homo sapiens in Africa. You have these small, tightly knit tribes, and their survival depended almost entirely on physical prowess.
Strength, endurance.
Strength, endurance, the ability to chase prey for miles. And they were using spears, which you have to remember, that was cutting-edge technology at the time.
Physical dominance was literally a lifeline.
Yeah.
If you couldn't keep up, you didn't eat. You didn't survive. And you can still see echoes of this today in some traditional societies. The Suri tribe in Ethiopia is a striking example.
The Donga ceremony.
Tell us about that.
The Donga ceremony is this profound rite of passage. It's a brutal stick fight, no protective gear. It's how a young man proves his strength, his bravery, his readiness for manhood.
And the winner gets status.
The winner gets status, respect, and crucially, the right to choose his partner. It's a very direct link. Your physical attributes determine your social standing and your entire future. The strongest thrived.
And cognitive skills were obviously there. They played a role. You had to be smart to hunt, to make decisions. But they weren't the main differentiator.
Precisely. In a world with limited outside information, no writing, and oral tradition, everyone kind of knew the same stuff, the same hunting grounds, the same stories.
So there was no information advantage.
Right. The real competitive edge was physical strength. That translated directly into more food, better protection for the tribe, and better life outcomes. Simple as that.
But then society mechanized. And that whole equilibrium just got flipped on its head.
Completely. As we moved into agriculture, then the Industrial Revolution, suddenly cognitive skills, knowledge, logic, creativity became the new currency. Those who could adapt their minds, not just their bodies, started to lead. And that cognitive paradigm has dominated for centuries.
Which brings us right back to John Henry and today. We're in the middle of a disruption to our cognitive dominance that's as big as that shift from physical to mental strength.
It is. The central question now is not, how do we use our minds better than each other? It's how do humans lead? How do we innovate when machines can match or even surpass so many of our mental abilities?
And the scale of this AI leap is becoming so clear. We're seeing this kind of collective cultural moment of recognition. I mean, you just have to look at something like the 2024 Nobel Prizes.
The Nobels really crystallized it. They were unconventional in a way. They served as this global acknowledgement that AI has fundamentally changed the intellectual landscape.
So in physics, the prize went to Geoffrey Hinton,
The godfather of AI, as he's called, and John J. Hopfield. And their work on neural networks was from the 1980s.
so not a new discovery.
Not at all. It was a recognition of the decades-old theoretical foundation that made this whole current AI boom possible.
And then in chemistry, it was a similar story, but for a very practical application.
Right. The prize went to Dimas Hassabis and John Jumper from DeepMind. And that was for AlphaFold,
Which solved the protein folding problem.
a biological mystery that had stumped scientists for decades. AlphaFold, this AI model, predicted the 3D structures of proteins with incredible accuracy, something humans just couldn't do at that scale or speed.
And that creates this fascinating, almost philosophical tension for us, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Was this a win for human intelligence, for the people who created the AI? Or was it, in a way, a win for artificial intelligence itself, for solving a problem humans couldn't?
The line is getting so blurry, it challenges our very definitions of intelligence and creativity. The award went to the humans, of course, but the achievement itself depended on the machine doing something faster and better than any human could have alone.
So we have this incredibly powerful, boundary-pushing tech. Let's just clarify for a moment what we mean by AI, and maybe more importantly, where it's all headed.
Sure, so artificial intelligence, at its core, is just computational systems doing tasks we normally associate with human intelligence: learning, reasoning, problem solving.
And right now, we're mostly in the world of narrow AI.
Right. And that distinction is so crucial for understanding the risks we face professionally. Narrow AI is really good at one specific thing. AlphaFold predicts proteins. A self-driving car navigates a route. An LLM writes an article. Powerful, but specialized.
But the goal, the next frontier, is AGI, artificial general intelligence.
The generalist thinker. AGI would have the cognitive flexibility to reason and learn across a huge range of fields, like a human does. It could make strategic decisions independently. And while AGI is still theoretical,
It feels closer than ever,
the speed of narrow AI development suggests it's a question of when, not if.
which defines this dual dynamic we're all in now. AI is both this incredible, indispensable assistant,
It amplifies our potential, for sure.
and, at the same time, a direct and accelerating competitor in all these cognitive tasks.
That dual nature is inescapable. As a competitor, it's faster, it makes fewer errors, it never gets tired. As an assistant, it takes the repetitive stuff off our plate.
So our professional future really hinges on two things.
Two things. First, how well we learn to leverage these tools to make ourselves more productive. And second, how well we adapt our unique human skills to complement the technology instead of trying to compete with it head on.
It's time to shift from competing to adapting. So let's get into that first pillar of adaptation, cognitive transformation. How do we need to fundamentally change the way we think?
The starting point for this has to be recognizing that our old skills, our specialized knowledge, is becoming commoditized.
It's a supply and demand problem.
Exactly. Think about it. Rarity creates value. A lawyer used to command high fees because very few people had that scarce expertise. But AI changes the supply side of that equation.
It's like suddenly everyone in the city is a lawyer.
Precisely. The value of that knowledge, while still important, plummets because the supply is overwhelming. AI is doing that for legal analysis, for high-level writing, for financial modeling. It's expanding access to skills that used to be uniquely human.
You had a great example of this from your own experience translating ancient Greek.
Yeah, that was a wake-up call for me. In high school, back in 2004, the final exam was translating this incredibly difficult piece from Plato's Protagoras.
How long do you have?
4 grueling hours. It was intense focus, memorization, cognitive execution. I barely finished, got a B. Years later, just for fun, I gave the same passage to GPT-4o.
Yeah.
The result was genuinely alarming. It produced a near-perfect translation, a 9 out of 10, in about 10 seconds.
10 seconds.
10 seconds. And this isn't about the AI being smarter. It's about it automating and augmenting that technical execution. It proves that technical accuracy is being commoditized, and that frees us up to focus on the human skills we used to overlook.
So if the AI has all the knowledge and can do the complex tasks in seconds, the critical human skill shifts completely.
It does.
Which brings us to our first skill, prompting, the power of questions.
Exactly. The edge moves from knowing the answer to asking a better question. We are entering a modern Socratic age.
Socrates was condemned for asking too many questions.
He was. Because his questions dismantled assumptions, they challenged rigid beliefs. And yet, his method ushered in a whole new era of critical thought. Today, our systems, education, corporate life, they still reward quick answers over deep curiosity. Asking the wrong question can still feel like a threat. That has to change.
It really shows how expertise can sometimes be a trap. It can limit your curiosity. The story of the Polaroid camera's invention is a perfect example of this.
It is. Edwin Land, the inventor, was on vacation with his 4-year-old daughter. He takes a picture of her, and she just innocently asks, "Dad, can I see the picture now?"
A question only a child would ask.
Right. Any photography expert at the time knew instant photos were impossible. Their deep expertise created a cognitive box. But that simple, beautiful question from someone without those constraints unlocked a multi-billion-dollar industry. AI demands that kind of high curiosity from us.
So the ability to prompt, well, isn't just a technical trick anymore. It's a core strategic skill. And it needs structure. There was research in the prompt report that said the quality of the prompt accounts for up to 78% of the quality of the output.
That is a massive margin. And the report breaks down what makes a good prompt into 3 essential elements. First, role assignment. You have to tell the AI who to be.
So not just summarize this.
Never just summarize this. It's act as an external consultant summarizing the latest biotech trends for a board of directors meeting. That refines the tone, the perspective, and makes the output so much more valuable.
The second part is clarity and specificity. This is where I think most people fall down. They treat it like a search engine.
Vague inputs guarantee generic results. Instead of write a business report, you need something like write a 1-page executive summary on digital transformation trends for a traditional manufacturing company, focusing on risk and ROI over 3 years. You're forcing it into an analytical mold.
And the third element is what makes it relevant to you.
Context and background. An AI is like a human consultant. It needs the full picture. If you want retention strategies, you have to tell it your industry, your customers, your competitors. Yeah. What are the best strategies for a traditional bank-facing competition from mobile-first fintechs? That layered context is everything.
And this skill, strategic questioning, it goes way beyond just talking to a machine. It's about challenging your whole industry.
It is.
SpaceX's success didn't come from making rockets a little bit better. It came from asking that beautiful question. What if rockets could land?
A question that sounded absurd to the experts at the time.
Totally absurd.
Yeah.
But that question redefined the entire economics of space travel. Prompting is about seeing possibilities that others, trapped in their expertise, just can't see.
And that leads us to the second cognitive skill, which is data sense making. moving beyond the rearview mirror.
Right. So AI is brilliant at pattern recognition. We've seen it with chess, with Go, even physical tasks. There was that robot, Jigsaw, that beat the human world record puzzle solver.
It did. And it won by focusing purely on the geometric shapes, not the picture. It shows AI is superior at decision-making, where you have vast amounts of data to train on.
But all the data and models AI spits out are useless if we can't interpret them correctly, if we only use them to look at the past. This is the rearview mirror effect.
It's a huge problem. An Oracle study found that 86% of leaders feel overwhelmed by data. And what do? They fall back on what's familiar.
Historical metrics, P&L statements, year-over-year growth.
They're driving the company by looking in the rearview mirror.
The cautionary tale here is always BlackBerry.
A perfect example of a failure in sense-making. In the late 2000s, they were on top of the world. They had all the data, all the market share, but they completely failed to understand the significance of the iPhone's touchscreen and App Store.
They were too focused on their old success metrics, the physical keyboard, BBM.
Exactly. Their downfall wasn't a lack of data. It was a catastrophic failure to interpret what that data meant for the future.
So how do we avoid that? How do we turn data into forward-looking insight?
It comes down to designing better key performance indicators, or KPIs. We need to shift from lagging indicators, which tell us what happened.
Like sales figures.
Right. To leading indicators, which help predict what will happen. Things like customer engagement signals. Good sense-making means designing KPIs that explain the why, not just the what.
You mentioned an interesting example with Tinder looking for these non-obvious correlations.
I did. So instead of just tracking app downloads, which is a vanity metric, their team in Latin America created a KPI they called the degree of self-esteem.
What does that measure?
It measured the ratio of successful matches to the number of likes a user gave out. And they found that users who matched once for every 2 likes were way more engaged and stayed on the platform much longer than those who only matched once every 10 likes.
So that insight changed their whole strategy.
It did. It changed their marketing, their algorithms, everything. They focused on the cause of engagement, not just the effect. That's sense-making.
And we need that human sense-making because AI, for all its power, has some really fundamental limitations.
4 key ones we have to be vigilant about. First, bias in the training data. AI is a mirror. It reflects and amplifies the biases in the data we feed it. We've seen facial recognition systems that are great at identifying white men, but fail miserably with people of color.
Because that's what they were trained on.
Exactly. The second issue is generalization problems. AI struggles with anything new, anything it hasn't seen before. It lacks our common sense, our ability to reason by analogy.
It's locked into its training data.
It is. Third, there's a lack of context and understanding the why. An LLM knows which word to put next statistically, but it has no idea why that sentence actually matters in the real world.
And the last one, the most insidious one, is hallucinations.
The AI just makes stuff up. It presents information that sounds completely plausible, coherent, confident, but it's entirely false. And that's where human critical thinking, our ability to validate sources, is our last line of defense.
Okay, so that brings us to the third cognitive skill we need. Reperception. Emptying the cognitive cup.
I love the Zen parable of the overflowing teacup for this. You can't learn anything new if your mind is already full of old ideas and assumptions. You need what they call shoshin, the beginner's mindset.
Reperception is the ability to let go of old conclusions even when new evidence comes along, which is incredibly hard for us to do.
It is. We're wired to fall into these cognitive traps. Confirmation bias, where we only see what confirms our beliefs, path dependence, where we stick with what worked in the past, and the illusion of linearity.
The illusion of linearity seems especially dangerous right now.
It's so dangerous. We assume change will be slow and steady, but exponential change looks slow at first, and then it hits an inflection point. By the time you realize how fast it's moving, it's too late to catch up.
So we need to actively practice this, to empty the cup.
We do, and we see companies doing this. Look at the food tech startup Notco. They have an AI named Giuseppe that creates plant-based alternatives to animal products.
How is that reperception?
Because Giuseppe has no baggage, no human culinary tradition. It might combine pineapple and cabbage to replicate the texture of milk, something a human food scientist would never even consider because of their ingrained assumptions. It makes the impossible possible.
John Deere's another great example of a company reperceiving its entire identity.
A huge one. They realized that Thinking of themselves as just an agricultural equipment company was holding them back. So they reframed their identity. They are now a company that sells intelligence to the farmer.
So the tractor is a platform for software.
Exactly. They embed sensors, GPS, algorithms to optimize everything. And their goal is to get 10% of their revenue from recurring software fees. That's a fundamental business model shift.
And this kind of reperception is our defense against homogenized thinking. If everyone uses the same AI tools trained on the same data to solve the same problems,
you all get the same answers. Originality dies. Differentiation disappears. Reperception forces you to think outside the algorithm's box.
so these cognitive skills thinking differently, they're the foundation. But that has to lead to action.
Right. Which brings us to our next pillar, behavioral transformation, the art of action. How do we act when AI is doing so much of the execution?
Well, the first thing AI took over was repetition, that Groundhog Day feeling in the office. Automation loves repetitive, rule-based tasks, and the speed gains are just immense.
They are. You see it at places like Dow Chemicals, where they cut R&D for a new material from months down to 30 seconds using predictive AI.
But that speed creates a paradox, the productivity paradox or the commoditization of execution.
Right. When everyone has access to the same high-speed tools, AI translators, coding assistants, you name it, then speed isn't a strategic edge anymore. It's just the new baseline.
Well, the value has to shift from speed to something else.
It has to shift to quality, to uniqueness, to the human touch. And that's the core of Skill 4, augmentation beyond automation.
You contrast this with a luxury brand like Hermes.
I do. The Birkin bag, its value is tied to its rejection of speed. It's made by one artisan over 20 hours. Its value is in the craftsmanship, the scarcity, the patience. The lesson is that as automation makes things faster, the quality of our human work has to rise to match.
So augmentation isn't about replacing people. It's about using AI to amplify what humans can do.
Exactly. We stop being task executors and become curators of these sophisticated workflows. A great example is the new bank call center, Copilot.
The digital bank.
Right. They use AI to automate about 50% of the simple frontline queries. That's automation. But for the complex stuff, they built this Copilot to assist their human agents in real time.
So how does it work?
The Copilot listens to the call and instantly pulls up all the relevant information, past chats, policy details, potential solutions, and presents it to the human agent.
And the results?
The human agents resolved complex issues 2.3 times faster, with higher accuracy. And crucially, their customer satisfaction scores stayed high. The AI handled the data retrieval. The human handled the empathy and the connection. That's the Copilot age.
Okay, next behavioral skill. Adaptability. The comfort in discomfort. You have this story about Takumi looking for his keys.
It's a classic story. He's looking for his keys under the street lamp. A friend asks if that's where he lost them. He says, no, he lost them in the dark field, but the light is better here.
Oh, I'll do that. We crave certainty. We stick to what's familiar.
We do, and adaptability is the behavioral response to that uncertainty. It's the action that follows the cognitive shift of reperception. AI is great in predictable environments with fixed rules and lots of training data. But when the rules change, when things are brand new, it struggles. That's where humans have to step in.
We're seeing this play out with the innovator's dilemma right now, facing a company like Eli Lilly.
A perfect, real-time example. Eli Lilly built its empire on managing chronic diseases like diabetes, a very steady, predictable business. But now, their new GLP-1 drugs, Mounjaro and Zepbound, are incredibly effective for obesity.
Which could shrink the very diabetes market that has sustained them for decades.
Exactly. Their current success threatens their traditional business. Adaptability is having the courage to pivot, to cannibalize your own revenue stream before a competitor does it for you.
You have to choose to destroy your own success.
It's a hard choice, but a necessary one. And here's the upside to all this uncertainty. Every experiment, every test generates new data. And that data fuels smarter AI.
This is where legacy companies might have a hidden advantage.
They absolutely do. Companies like Prudential with their health monitoring programs or Walmart moving into healthcare, they're sitting on mountains of proprietary first-party data. That data is their strategic capital. It allows them to train unique AI models and adapt in ways that companies relying on public data just can't.
Which leads us to the final behavioral skill, anti-fragility. The upside of mistakes. This is more than just being resilient, more than just bouncing back.
It is. Anti-fragility is about growing stronger through crises and mistakes. I love the analogy of Muay Thai fighters who rolled glass bottles on their shins
To cause microtrauma.
deliberately. They inflict these small, controlled injuries, and the body's response is to make the bone denser and harder. We have to learn to treat professional setbacks the same way.
To do that, we have to get smarter about the kinds of mistakes we're making. Amy Edmondson's framework is useful here.
It is. First, you have avoidable mistakes. These are just errors from carelessness. You want to minimize those with automation. Second, unavoidable mistakes, which happen in complex systems. You mitigate those with predictive AI.
But the third category is where the growth happens.
Smart mistakes. These are the errors that come from deliberate, low-risk experiments designed to test a hypothesis. They are essential.
And AI can help us make more smart mistakes and get more out of them.
In two key ways. First, AI minimizes the cost of failure. Experimentation used to be incredibly expensive. Now, with simulations and digital twins, you can fail fast and cheap. Ford runs over 200 virtual crash tests for a tiny fraction of the cost of one physical test.
So mistakes become learning opportunities, not catastrophes.
Right. And second, AI helps us maximize the learning from failure. It can analyze vast amounts of failure data sifting through millions of lines of code or bug reports way faster than a human could, creating these incredibly rapid feedback loops. We learn better and smarter from every single iteration.
So we've changed how we think, we've changed how we act. That brings us to the final pillar, the emotional one.
The final frontier, emotional transformation. This is where we have to anchor human connection because AI is actively trying to simulate it.
It is getting convincing.
Mm-hmm.
We have the movie Her, where the main character falls in love with his AI assistant, only to find out she's talking to thousands of other people at the same time.
And that's not science fiction anymore. The rise of emotion AI or affective computing is real. These AI companions are getting millions of users. They can reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression because they're always available, they're non-judgmental.
But there's a hard limit here, which is consciousness. AI can analyze and detect emotion, but it can't feel.
It can't. And we saw the backlash with the Coco mental health platform. When users found out their supportive messages were being co-written by ChatGPT, they felt betrayed.
The founder said, simulated empathy feels weird, empty.
It's the uncanny valley effect for emotion. When a simulation gets too close to the real thing without actually being it, we feel this deep sense of unease and distrust. AI's empathy is code, it's not connection.
Which brings us to skill 7, empathy, the importance of feeling. We have to protect the one thing AI can't replicate, genuinely feeling with another person.
And empathy is a skill. It's not fixed like IQ. You can train it. It's built on 4 things. Taking their perspective, not judging, recognizing their emotion, and then communicating that you understand.
And there's a huge business case for this. 93% of employees will stay with an empathetic employer. 64% of customers will leave if the human service is bad.
The goal has to be an AI-human emotional partnership. Let the AI act as an extra sense, detecting tone and sentiment at scale. But the human has to provide the context, the connection, the trust. We have to design our businesses for emotion, not just efficiency.
Which leads right into the next skill, trust, the operating system of society.
It's the invisible glue. The thought experiment is, 1 human versus 1 monkey, you bet on the monkey, but 100 humans versus 100 monkeys, you bet on the humans. Why? Because we can trust each other and collaborate at scale.
But technology has shifted where we place that trust. We used to trust the taxi driver, now we trust the Uber system.
We do. But AI adds this new layer of complexity because it thinks for us. And that's creating a lot of reluctance. 52% of Americans are more concerned than excited about AI.
And that reluctance comes down to 3 core issues.
3 big ones. First, the lack of explainability, the black box problem. We see the input, we see the output, but the decision process in the middle is often completely opaque.
Second, data opacity. We don't know what data it was trained on, so we worry about bias.
And the biggest one for collaboration, lack of accountability. You can't hold an algorithm legally or morally responsible when something goes wrong. Who do you sue? The lack of a clear, accountable agent just erodes public trust.
So the solution has to involve explainable AI, XAI.
It has to. Companies like JP Morgan are already using XAI to explain why a loan was denied. This is moving from a nice-to-have to a legal requirement.
But technology alone isn't enough.
Not even close. We also have to rebuild human-to-human trust. And that's built on vulnerability and reciprocity, on that shared connection that AI can't provide.
Which brings us to our final skill, the one that really anchors our value. Skill 9, agency, the weight of responsibility.
This is the ultimate human skill. The maritime tradition says the captain must be the last to leave a sinking ship. Captain Smith on the Titanic embodied that. That's agency. It's owning the outcome.
as opposed to Captain Citino of the Costa Concordia, who fled.
Exactly. Agency is owning the consequences and the moral weight of a decision, especially when automation makes it so easy to pass the buck. AI can execute, but it can't care. It can simulate moral behavior, but it has no conscience. And that's profoundly dangerous if we delegate too much authority to it.
Instagram's co-founder, Kevin Systrom, called this the pre-Newtonian moment of AI. We know it works, but we don't always know how it works, which makes assigning responsibility almost impossible.
And the stakes are so high. The moral machine experiment from MIT showed there's no universal moral code AI can follow. In an unavoidable crash, different cultures have wildly different ideas about who the car should save. The young, the old, the passengers.
So there's no right answer to program in.
There isn't, which is why humans must apply super-agency ethical, intentional oversight. Asking AI to navigate moral complexity is like asking a compass to sail a ship through a storm. We have to remain the conscious agent in control of the tool.
So after all that, what's the takeaway? The conclusion of our deep dive is that this isn't about us or the machine. We have to escape that John Henry trap.
The future is collaboration. We saw this proven in the world of advanced chess, or centaur chess, where a human and an AI team up against another human-AI pair.
And the surprising result from that?
The surprising result was that the best performers weren't always the grandmasters with the most powerful computers. Often they were amateurs who were just really, really good at orchestrating the collaboration. They knew when to trust the AI's raw power and when to inject their own human intuition and strategic judgment.
So the future belongs to the hybrid professional.
It does. To thrive, you have to master this hybrid skill set. It's a continuous process built on those three transformations we talked about.
So first, cognitive transformation, mastering prompting, data sense-making, and reperception.
Then, behavioral transformation, shifting to augmentation, building adaptability, and fostering anti-fragility.
And finally, emotional transformation, leveraging empathy, establishing trust, and exercising agency.
Your success lies in orchestrating that collaboration, combining human intuition and ethical judgment with machine precision and speed.
It's about making sure we remain the conscious curators of our own future.
And that brings us to our final provocative thought, which really sums up why developing these skills is so critical. The NYU professor David Chalmers estimated there's more than a 20% chance that artificial consciousness could emerge within the next decade.
A 20% chance.
Now, if we mistakenly assign consciousness to a machine that is just simulating it very well, we risk elevating a tool to the same moral status as the human lives it was meant to serve. The whole purpose of the hybrid skill set is to ensure that we, the conscious agents, retain our identity and our control, so that when the future gets here, it won't be AI replacing people.
It'll be people with the hybrid skill set who replace those who don't.
Exactly.
That is a fundamental challenge to think about. Your competitive advantage really does depend on prioritizing these uniquely human skills. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.